I get so excited when I do a program like this. I might just jump in there and just start right in. Yes, it's the energy. I want to go back to that because I have to tell you something. This may be, well, you know what? It's probably first or second because this one's called Immune Boost. And all of us have been thinking about our immune systems and so forth this year. This is so many incredible fruits. And the ones that aren't in here, like I mentioned, like the cherry and some of the others that are in here. So get together with the person that's helping you with all of this and trade out some product or something because you've got to get this beverage stuff correct. As a matter of fact, it's going to feel like we're going right back to it because we're really not quite finished. Are you ready for step number 2? Now, we call this minimize inflammation. I was on a recording with the company the other day. I got so excited, I said inflation. And John H., our host, said, Ron, I think you meant inflammation. You know what? It's a Dickens. It gets us. As a matter of fact, inflammation is so present in most of our bodies today. How can we minimize that? I thought about this. We prayed about it. It's kind of like years ago. What do we do for step number 2? How do we minimize inflammation? We've got lots of ideas, but we have one again that we're going to share with you on the summer reboot. There's going to be one, and I'm going to have a little bit of a fun play on words here. In our industry, if a product is continued healthful or healthy, we say GRAS, G-R-A-S, which means it's generally recognized as safe. Well, as we were thinking about this particular recording, we said, what do we call step 2? And we came up with GRAS. Okay, generally recognized as safe, of course, but here's what it means. Greatly reduce, now get this part, added sugar. Really, what does that mean, Ron? Well, here's the good news. The government has said nutrition labels are going to have to tell us from this point forward what we mean by added sugar, so we're not going to have to guess about this stuff anymore. You see, by the way, I'm going to reach over here to my stash, if you will, because we have all, sorry about that, we have all these incredible products. And I almost feel like right at the beginning here of this video for step 2, just saying, you know what you really can do is just take your Emulin and you'd have this one pretty well covered. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about this in just a moment. But what we're saying is this. The problem that we have is we're getting so much added sugar in our diet every day, we don't have a chance. You say, well, what do you mean added? Well, sugar isn't bad. Sugar's in food. What do they call it in dairy products? Lactose. What do they call it in all those wonderful, colorful fruits? They call it fructose. There's all kinds of ways that our Creator provided for us to get all of these incredible forms of sugar into our body. But then I think what he said is, okay, that's enough. He didn't intend for us to add sucrose with the fructose and make something called high fructose corn syrup and put it in as added sugar. I saw a bottle of Mountain Dew the other day, and it said each serving was 39 grams of sugar. Now, pardon me, but that's 10 teaspoons, and that's one serving. But then it said 39 of those grams are added sugars. Well, of course they are. And so what are we talking about here? We are saying that the greatest impact that you can make on your health right now is to just begin literally to get to the point to where you will eliminate the added sugars. Julie goes to a place called OsteoStrong, and she's working on her bone structure and so forth. And so yesterday, while she was there, I went next door to a convenience store. I looked through an entire section of beverages, and there were about 2 besides the plain water that were fit to drink. They had 20 grams of added sugar. One of them had 29 grams of added sugar. Quite frankly, here's the part that really frustrates me. I have a very dear friend who loves green tea. He knows green tea is good for us. We should drink green tea. And he doesn't look at the fact that it's got all this sugar added to it. He looked at me one day and he said, "It's only 16 grams." I said, "Really? Let's take a look." It's a 20-ounce bottle of green tea. If you look at the nutrition label, it does say 16 grams per serving, and a serving is 8 ounces. So that bottle of tea has 16 times 2.5. That's how much it has. Okay, Ron, get off your high horse. But here's the point. Don't be drinking your calories. You want this to work? You want a summer reboot? We're hydrating. You notice in that first step, we didn't talk about these kind of beverages, but you say, "Ron, do I have to give up everything?" No. We'll show you all kinds of options as we go along. But will you go with us? And we'll start with the beverages. We're going to say from now on, I'm not going to drink my calories. So we're going to go along and we're going to say GRAS. We're going to remember that here as we go along with step 2, and that is greatly reduce added sugars. I am excited, really, me excited. I am excited for this reason. When I was doing programs like this 12, 15 years ago, we used to just have to rail against trans fats and trans fatty acids and partially hydrogenated oil and tell people these are killing us. And so we get all excited to make sure we told people to watch out for that stuff. Well, the good news is the labels were changed and we got some help here. And suddenly those kinds of things aren't creeping up on us like they used to. Well, guess what? As I said, the new Nutrition Labeling Act says these added sugars now are going to have to be identified. And most of the companies, most of the good companies, are already doing it. So what's the point? The first part of this little piece, it just simply says, again, don't drink your calories. Let's make sure we get the added sugars out of our beverages. And number 2, and I'm not going to take a lot of time to go into this right now, but the same thing is true with processed foods. So I was in this convenience store, I said, and so I started looking and I said, let's look at all the C's. Man, I can't believe this just came through my mind. Remember the seafood diet? Shows you how old I am. We used to talk about the seafood diet. You know, the problem, I see food and I eat it. I'm sorry, that's not the point here. I was thinking of all the C words. As I was in the store, I looked at candy, of course, candy bars. I looked at cookies. I looked at some cupcakes that were there. I looked at crackers. I even walked over and looked at the few packaged cereals that they had in the store. And who cares if they're C words? They're all throughout the middle part of the store. The same thing is true. 16 grams of sugar in this cookie. Really? You say, why so much? And then you look closely, 14 grams of added sugar. Now, in your written materials, we're going to give you the names of some of these added sugars. We've already mentioned the one that's been around now for 25 plus years, and it's going to go away because they're going to change the name on us, but we've known it forever as high fructose corn syrup. Boy, if you would just start looking for ways, and I know most of you are, some of you are saying, man, Ron, you are so out of date. Well, some of us do this, some of us don't. Some of us are hearing this for the first time. let's begin to wrap this up. What's the point that we're making here? We need to manage our sugars. And believe it or not, through a new partnership just about a year ago with an incredible scientist, we have a product. You can probably see the name there, but you'll be seeing it. It's called Emulin. And quite frankly, a couple of these at least a day with your meal, and here is your sugar manager. Here's your sugar chaperone. So what's the point? We're going to do both. We're going to do a better job of greatly reducing the added sugars, and then we're going to help manage it by taking our Emulin. Probably at first we're going to take more, 4 to 6 a day for a couple of weeks to really get this system going. Folks, I want to be careful how I say this, but I want to close this with this thought. A lot of people have died this year with some crazy stuff going on in the world, and it's not my place to even mention it, except to say this. The headlines have said now repeatedly for a couple of months, there's always additional underlying conditions. 90% of the cases have had underlying conditions, and almost all of them were related to blood sugar. You and I don't recognize the term insulin resistance all that easily, so I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to say, let's get rid of some added sugars. Can we do that? So we've already worked at doing a better job on hydration. Now we're going to reduce some of that inflammation and insulin resistance by watching out for added sugars. We're just getting started. We're going to take those pounds of this summer. We haven't even gotten to the eating stuff and all of that yet, so don't go too far away. Maybe in a week or so, after you've watched this one a couple of times, come on back and we'll go on to step 3, where we're going to talk about a word that we may or may not understand, and that's metabolism. See you next time.